Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the third day of week-long national webinar on education during COVID-19 and beyond. And our today's session will be chairing by Honorable Dean, Faculty of Education, Mahatma Gandhi University, Professor Jaya Jais ma'am. I request Professor Jaya Jais ma'am to take over the program.
Thank you, Dr. Ismail. Am I audible to all?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Once again, good day to all and welcome to the third day of the 1 week in national webinar on education during COVID-19 and beyond. As introduced by Dr. Ismail, myself, Dr. Jaya Jais, Professor at the School of Pedagogical Sciences, Mahatma Gandhi University. Seeking blessings of the Almighty, let us begin the day's proceedings on a note of welcome. Our respected Honorable Vice Chancellor Professor Sabu Thomas Pro Vice Chancellor Professor C.T. Arvinda Kumar, our distinguished guest, Senior Scientist at NPTEL, IIT Madras, Dr. Jayakrishnan M., the organizing team of the webinar, Head of the Department Professor Minikutti, Professor Tulasidharan, Professor Asha JV, Dr. Sajna Jalil, Dr. Ismail Tamirsheri, Dr. Mohammed KV, and Dr. Sibu G. Netto, the technical staff of the university, and the administrative staff of the School of Pedagogical Sciences who are the supporting strength of this program, and dear participants of the webinar, with immense pleasure, I extend to you all a warm welcome to this August online gathering. Let me now move on to my next duty. I am privileged to introduce the guest of the day. We have with us Dr. Jayakrishnan M. Here is a brief sketch of his educational background and professional career. Dr. Jayakrishnan completed his B.Tech in Electrical and Electronics Engineering from Mahatma Gandhi University. His M.Tech in Technology and Development and PhD were from Center for Technology Alternatives for Rural Areas, IIT Bombay. He started as a software engineer with focus on quality control and assurance. Later, he worked as project research scientist in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering, IIT Bombay, for the MOOC platform of IIT Bombay. There, he was also part of the design and implementation team for AICTE approved faculty development programs. Presently, Sir is working as senior scientist with the NPTEL IIT Madras. Dr. Jayakrishnan has keen interest in projects related to use of information and communication technologies for development of education. His areas of interest in the higher education sector in India include teacher professional development, learning analytics, sustainability, and design-based implementation research. He has been involved in the design and implementation team of 3 large-scale in-service faculty professional development workshops that comprised between 1,000 to 5,000 participants. Dr. Jayakrishnan is on the path for initiating improvements within the professional system using the power of technology. Today, he will be delivering a talk on professional development and learning analysis. Sir, we are indeed fortunate to have you with us and are eagerly awaiting to hear from you. Now the session is all yours. Dr. Jayakrishnan, kindly take over.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Good morning, one and all. So I'm Jayakrishnan. So today's session, we'll be talking more about, so I understand that this is, this entire series is all about the changes in education after COVID-19. So in this context, since I've been working in the area of teacher professional development for the past 6 to 7 years, I thought of talking about both teacher professional development, changes that are going to happen in teacher professional development, and the increasing role that learning analytics is going to play in teacher professional development. So I'll just share my slide over here. Okay, generally the slides are it's just a 10 slide presentation, but more importantly, I'll be talking of what do you say, the impact of teacher professional development that you see right now. So I hope my slides are visible. Yes, it is. Yeah, so it is all about how COVID has opened up tools. I mean, the idea of teacher professional development and the increasing role that technology is playing both in teaching and learning. Uh, so I think we should start first with the broad definitions. So I'm using the definitions that is available in literature. First, to define the context from where we are starting. Professional development or teacher professional development, it is all about teachers learning. Okay, learning how to learn, transforming their knowledge, whatever they learned, into practice, and thereby benefiting the students. Okay, allowing students to grow, identifying learner difficulties, and then supporting them both in terms of pedagogy as well as in terms of technology or whatever the teaching aids are. Another important aspect, if you look at it, is learning analytics. So learning analytics is the measurement, collection, and analysis of data. This data is about learners and their context. So what do you mean by context? Context could be their learning setting, their background. A lot of things come in context. So for example, a BTech student from Kerala in a remote location, currently learning through tools like WebEx or other kind of technology tools, is one context. Whereas another BTech student, let's say from a city like Mumbai, okay, that is a completely different context altogether. Okay, so this learners and the context. So context plays a huge role in how learning happens. And learning analytics is all about measuring, collecting, analyzing, and reporting about both the learner and their context. Why? For the purpose of understanding and optimizing learning and the environments in which learning happens. So this is about learning analytics, and we will now look closely into what these are. So first I'll talk of teacher professional development, and then I will move to specific cases of teacher professional development where analytics has played a part. And finally, I will move into what kind of analytics, now that COVID has stuck, what all things uh, analytics can offer teacher professional development. I'll be talking about that. So if you look at the trends in last few years, so this is even before COVID. Let's take the era from 2010 to 2019. Okay, I'll not talk of 2020, 2010 to 2019. We have seen a lot of initiatives by the government. So for example, National Knowledge Network. Then you have the NMEICT project. We also have these technology infrastructure booming through MOOCs, MOOC platforms becoming more popular. So as over the past decade, we have seen a greater ICT penetration in the teaching learning process. Okay. And this is a generation, particularly in higher education. The millennials officially came into our classroom space during this generation, right? And during this past few years. So which means we have a more digitally native learners amidst us, and teachers became more like the nomads who had access to technology very late, whereas all the students are having technology. When they are born itself, they are growing with the technology. Okay, so this is what I meant by digital natives, arrival of digital natives in the classroom. So this is how the classroom context is. So you have lot of technologies. You have so many colleges, they have the slides, projectors, more usage of PowerPoint slides. They have classroom projectors, smart classrooms, etc., coming in this in these past few years. And also the audience that they have a more vibrant audience who are more comfortable with mobiles, who are more comfortable with the idea of computers, technology, etc. And so this is how the classroom changed in the past decade. And along with that, there is a policy initiative which focused on outcome based education, right? So all of you have to write your learning objectives. You have the program outcomes, course outcomes. I don't know. There are these several types of outcomes that you have to specify, and every instructional strategy was more oriented towards achieving these what do you say, these outcomes that they have specified. Now along with that, so as the context changed, as technology changed, the focus of teacher professional development also changed. So earlier teacher professional development was like a one webinar, I mean once in 3 months or once in 6 months you arrange a seminar, arrange a symposium, or arrange a training session specifically for teachers when a technology change happens, right? So now over the past decade, there has been an explicit focus on continuous professional development. What it means, as a teacher, you need to uh, get updated. I mean, update yourself regularly, both in terms of technology, in terms of content, in terms of attitudes and behaviors. Everything changed a lot in the uh, past decade, and hence focus on continuous professional development was pretty high, and across all levels, not just higher education. Even in school education, we are seeing a lot of these technology gadgets coming in, applications coming in, etc. Now, what has COVID done? Okay, COVID has suddenly, I mean, earlier teachers still had, I mean, they could still not opt to use technology inside the classroom. They could continue with whatever they were comfortable with. But with the arrival of COVID, it was like a frantic reaction, right? Everyone moved from standard teaching learning to emergency response teaching. So webinar tools like WebEx, Google Meet, Zoom. So all these became pretty much more essential toolkit in the hands of the teachers. Everybody need to know how to do this. Everybody need to know how to operate. All these happened pretty fast, and this adoption became at scale. So it's not just one or few teachers who are using it right now. All the teachers across the world now have formally gotten into the technology bandwagon. Uh, you have to focus both at asynchronous and synchronous modes of teaching learning. So what I mean by asynchronous is you could think of things like WhatsApp. It's more of asynchronous, as in yes, you may get immediate responses, but the entire classroom, they may see the particular lesson or the notes, etc., at their own pace. For example, discussion forums in MOOCs is a classic example of asynchronous learning. So not everyone is connected to it at the same time. People come and visit that technology tool at varying point of time, and the resources are still available over there. Then there are synchronous modes of teaching learning. What we are doing right now, WebEx based web conferencing. It could be chats, simple direct messages in WhatsApp. That is more of synchronous. So group messages in WhatsApp may be asynchronous. Direct messages can be thought of as synchronous. It's like you are responding more on real time when direct messaging happens. So these kind of modalities became more popular because of our strategy to give a response to the crisis that is at hand. So in this particular scenario, I'm taking few cases to exemplify the idea of the transition of the idea of teacher professional development over a period of COVID. Some resources were already available. Some of the cases are already available, but specifically there are two cases. So I'll discuss about three cases of teacher professional development, which is meant for which happened, which is more useful for teachers for their continuous professional development. The first one is a self-paced course. So this is developed by the Educational Technology Department at IIT Bombay. So I'm a graduate from this department. So this site, so you can see the URL. It's a Google Sites. On the left-hand side, you can see the menu items, the different aspects of it, and this is a basic overview. It provides a basic overview, and it is all about. This website was primarily created for IIT Bombay instructors to help them to transition to online teaching pretty fast. But since its inception, we have conducted several faculty professional development using this as a core resource. It may be the operating context, or we use the pages from these website, and we provide them information on various aspects of online teaching and learning. So this, so let me show you the site. I'll just share the screen. Okay, so the first one is the online teaching site by IIT Bombay. As you can see, this is an overview. There are these hyperlinks within all these in the page, which points to different resources. And there is also a discussion forum. It's nothing but a Google group. So you can just go to the discussion forum over here, and you can see a lot of people have been asking questions. So from May 25th, there are people, July also you are seeing, August, June. So this is the kind of asynchronous learning that happens in these kind of situations. So,
Sir, is
sure. Pardon? So you are not audible. I heard the first show screen is what I heard. I hope my screen is visible.
yes, sir. It is not visible here on.
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll just paste the website for you in the chat. Do not worry, this is pretty much common for the technology access issues are pretty much common everywhere. Please look at the chat window. I have posted the website link over there. So the important idea of this particular website, so unlike a synchronous setting that we are seeing right now, this is an asynchronous. So this is a website with all the resources aggregated. So think of it as a library where all the helpful resources are provided. And look at the course goals. To help instructors who mostly teach face-to-face classes to get started in online teaching. So it is not a comprehensive resource. It is the idea is to help teachers quickly start with online teaching. To address various aspects of teaching learning process in the online medium beyond content delivery. Now, most of you would have done some portion of teaching learning online, and what you would have realized is online teaching is much more strenuous than a face-to-face setting, primarily because one, there is a learning curve with the technology. Another is the affordances of the technology have to be optimally used to gain the benefit, and to understand what these affordances are and use it more synchronously. That is a challenge for most instructors. So I'll give you a simple example. Can people who are listening to me right now tell me for 40 minutes of their lecture, how much time do you need to prepare when the lecture is conducted online? Think of your own topics, your own courses. Imagine a 40-minute lecture. Okay, in a face-to-face classroom, you would have the slides, you would be preparing a little bit, you would be doing some kind of previous preparation, and then going into the classroom and doing the lecture. So maybe around 2 hours, 1 hour to 2 hours of total effort involved in preparing and delivering a lecture in a face-to-face setting. Now that online setting has come, now that you have to teach using multiple modalities in online, how much effort do you have to put for teaching a 40-minute lecture? You can post your answers in the chat. So you see the affordance of chat over there. This particular tool, the web conferencing tool, you have the affordance of chat. So why don't you put your answers in chat to the question, how much time does it take, preparation and delivery, for a 40-minute lecture that you traditionally have? Hello? Yeah, so I see the first answer from Sandeep Matthew, 2 hours. Others can also populate their answers, 3 to 4 hours. I'm hearing some responses in between. Can the participants mute themselves if they are not responding to my query? Can you mute yourself? Yeah. So I think this is better. So yeah, I'm seeing a lot of answers, 2 to 3 hours. Somebody is talking of 40 hours. 40 hours is bit too stretch, right? One hour, 2 hour. So I see answers about 2 to 3 hours, more common 3 to 4 hours. 1 to 2 hours. Yeah, so Tanya Raina is saying for preparation depends on the content. If I have to start from the scratch, then 2 hours, but the content is available, then 1 hour. Yeah, okay. So that's what I thought. I mean, it's not 40 hours, it's more than 40 minutes, obviously. Yes. So yeah, so Sonam ma'am, Sonam, what we were telling you is think of your own subject. You don't have to go into any other subject. Think of your own course, your own topic, and look at how much time you want to prepare and deliver. How much time it takes. So in general, a general rule when you talk of face-to-face and online settings are for effective learning, the preparation, if the preparation time that you require, preparation and delivery time that you have for face-to-face is considered as X, then in an online setting, the time for the same effectiveness, for the same quality, you will need to spend almost 4x hours. I mean, 4x time. So if you spend 2 hours in face-to-face setting, then the same thing in an online setting to get the same effectiveness, it is 4x. If you just want to deliver content, then X plus a little delta may be sufficient. That delta is basically your technology setup time. But to have the same effectiveness, you need to invest 4 times more effort in an online setting. And hence we have to look at what are the key principles. So in teacher professional development programs, we look at what these key principles, strategies, tools, etc. are there for effective teaching learning. It's not just replication of face to face, it is more about getting the effectiveness from if not more, if not same, at least more effectiveness from a technology setting. So the teacher professional development is more about how do you bring in effectiveness to online teaching learning. And of course, the final goal, if you look at it, of this particular website is to make recommendations that are based in evidence or based in actual research on teaching learning practice, online learning. Okay, so this website is a kind of teacher professional development resource. It can be used for continuous professional development. And if you look at the key idea, so all these are resources. So what are the challenges that you face? Giving how do I exploit the power of online medium and utilize it to promote effective student learning? So here you see all the major ideas of online learning given over here. And this is this site contains the principles of effective online instruction. First, curate before you create, keep videos short and insert reflections. So there are these principles that you can go over with. So these are all. So again, this session is not about taking this website as a detailing the website, but it is about showing you how teacher professional development can be done using a static resource like a website. Okay, so this is a Google site, and here you have all the resources aggregated, labeled or characterized according to what it represents. So this is the first website that I wanted to show you regarding teacher professional development during COVID. Okay. Now let me show you. Let us continue with the slides. The second, the second after this online teaching website, next we go into an international site that has been there for quite some time now. Okay, so this is the OER Commons. There are two reasons why I'm showing OER Commons. One is because the resource available over here spans multiple levels. So this is for primarily it was meant for K to 12 level, but over the past few years, there have been sufficient university instructors who have been taking part in OER Commons, and they have added resources at higher education level. So here you can actually select education level, filter it based on education level, based on subjects, and select resources. So let me show you the site, OER Commons site. So this is the OER Commons website. You can, it's not just a, what do you say, a website alone. You can actually create groups or hubs. So this is, suppose you want to connect with other instructors, you want to share resources. It also has this idea of hubs or groups through which you can co-create or collaborate with other instructors. So from a static website which you could do as a self-learning. Now this is a collaborative website. Okay, so from static website we have moved to a collaborative website where the same level of characterization is there, as in you could search by levels. So for example, graduate or professional, and I can actually search for resources under the OER Commons, and all these resources are there in this particular website. So you can select by materials, the type of material, teaching or learning strategy, or you can use it by several levels of filters are there. So adult education, material type, license type, content source, all these things are available inside this, and even open textbooks for that matter are available through the OER Commons website. Okay, so this is another website that I wanted to show you regarding the dynamic website that you can use for teacher professional development. So one more important thing while you're talking of teacher professional development is the idea of a professional network is pretty important in teaching and learning. Okay, so a lot of our learning happens from the peer networks that we develop, or the learning networks that we develop specifically with respect to your domain. Okay, so this is very important. Moving ahead, already the significance of professional learning networks have been told by several research, but now with online being more prominent, the idea of this professional learning network is increasing day by day. So if you are not part of any professional learning network, this will be a good time to create, either join an existing one or create a small network from your own domain and share ideas and also share resources with each other. Okay. So this is an international site, Open Educational Resources. It has open authorship, groups, libraries, collections, common, so STEM literacy, several different areas have been provided. There are microsites and hubs that you can explore. It is more about the continuous professional learning that you see in professional development space. Okay, so there are these how-tos on how to use groups, how to create profile, how to search in OER Commons. Please go ahead and explore this if you have not seen it yet. If you're already there, go ahead, join a group, join a hub, and see what is happening in that community. Okay, so this is the second case that I wanted to show you. So the first case, a static self-learning website. The only collaboration that you could see was a discussion group that was there, where you could post and connect with each other. Whereas over here, it is more dedicated. The second one, the dynamic website of OER Commons, it has evolved from a static website to allow for groups and communities to coexist along with the static website. The static website has all the content archives. The dynamic part of it is the groups and communities that you can join. The third one that I'm going to show you is a small workshop that we did at NPTEL. Okay, so it was called Transition to Online Facilitation. And what you are seeing over here are the websites created by the participants of this particular workshop. So we had close to 200 enrollments at the start of the workshop. Out of these 200 enrollments, around 120 were very active, and we had a Slack group for. So here is a question for all of you out there. How many of you have heard of the technology called Slack? So I've posted a question in the chat. How many of you have heard of or have used Slack as a professional development tool? Okay, so you have a lot of you have not heard of it. Okay, so why don't I demonstrate Slack to everyone over here? Yeah, so see, all these resources, all these are WordPress or Google site pages created by the groups. What they did was they conducted a training for their other participants. So we had divided the entire participants of this workshop into 10 groups, and we had each group training the other groups in Slack. So let me show you a Slack workspace. So I hope all of you are able to see this. So Slack is a communication website or a communication tool that is used by companies. Let me sign into it. In many professional space, we use Slack for inter group or inter team communication. And this entire workshop was conducted in Slack over here. So we have a channel. So all this in Slack, you have a channel through which communications happen. And roughly, if you look at it, it is more or less like a WhatsApp group, but it has got far more powers than normal WhatsApp. So let me go to the top of this particular channel. You can see as I move up, the days and dates, etc., gets changed. A lot of different settings. You can see people posting several things. These are polls happening over here. A lot of these things can be done using Slack. So all this, what you see, are training sessions and discussions happening between the participants of this workshop. It started somewhere around May end, so it will go for a little more time. I'll just take an example over here. So this is the user Sachin Rajgopalan, who started the one of the training session, and if you see, there are reactions. So then there is a poll. So this is attendance mark during using the poll. So whoever attended at that point of time, they could select a choice. So let's say I'm from group 10. So my answer will get recorded in that. So all these polls were happening, and if you see within this particular post, so this is stage 1. So this website was given, and you can see everyone responding under this post. So this is called a thread. Okay. So in this thread, everyone is responding to the main post, and the instructor. So over here, the trainer is one of the instructors, and they are responding to that, and they are clarifying. So here somebody was trying. So I think this training was on open broadcasting software. So somebody was talking of an error that they got, and the instructor is responding back, saying that this may be an error in the machine, and this clarifications are happening over here. The reactions are there. A lot of these clarifications happen synchronously. So this training session is happening entirely in Slack. It is not using a virtual meeting like this. What you see over here is the discussion between the instructors and the participants in that particular training. So we had a lot of these micro trainings happening, resources being shared. Everything was happening through this particular channel. And this is what Slack does. So it neatly, so if somebody comes in again, they can actually refer back to the entire session and look at what happened in that entire session. I'll briefly show you a session that I took for these teachers in Slack. I can actually look at it. So I can actually look at the sessions. So all these items are also archived by the participants themselves. All these artifacts have been used by, created by the participants themselves. And if you look at the session, so this is a session that I took for everyone, a welcome script, then the instructions, then we had polls, we had the same kind of, so we had some pedagogy adopted, people reacting to it. So you can see responses coming over here. You had another set of responses coming over here. And more importantly, another thing, if you look at it, is these participants among themselves also interacted through these micro groups. So they, each of them had groups of their own. So this becomes a platform. This entire Slack channel becomes a platform for dynamic learning during the professional development program. So this idea of community, the idea of resource sharing, everything happens inside this platform. So this is how we created the training. And all these, if you click on this, you can see one team teaching the others on a tool called Testmos. So this is a website for that. Then this is group 10. This is somebody else was talking of mind map, Flashback Express, and Caden Live. So a total of 13 technologies were taken as part of the entire workshop. So the dates, the sessions, what the sessions were about, and the links to the Slack channel are provided over here. And they have also created WordPress websites as part of the professional development effort that they did. So what I want to highlight over here is now when you talk of teacher professional development, all the artifacts that people created. Second. So all the artifacts that people created have also been now archived. Now you have a website. So this entire website was created by 3 people from this community itself. 3 people from this website, from this particular teacher professional development group. They created this website. What all they do, the overview, the schedule, the outcomes, the objectives, everything where. So these are key statistics about this workshop. 106 people got certified. 15 technology tools were covered. 27 testimonials were received for this workshop. So all this comes as part of this entire workshop effort. And you also have a community speak where teachers from this community now create resources and share it to us through a blog. Okay, so the first one is a mind map tool of listing various ICT tools. So this is a teacher who created a list of tools and classified them, and also provided them with links and other shortcuts, so that anyone can add more resources. So if you want to add a resource, then you can actually add it from here. So people can collaborate with this particular website. So this is a mind map that the instructor created, ICT Tools in Education by Rakesh Roshan. So we are promoting this as a community network website where more teachers can participate and more teachers can pool in their resources after their teaching, or during or after their teacher professional development. And as we already mentioned, where the focus is more on outcomes, these kind of resources provide a very visible outcome, that all these teachers are able to use certain resources, and they have been able to provide a output that others can use also. So this is where professional development is heading to. So it is not just a what do you say, a passive session where, okay, people come to so no I mean, it's not a criticism, but professional development has gone beyond the levels of me going and attending a session, getting all the knowledge, to me participating in this process as an active participant, creating resources and contributing back to the community. So all this, what you see over the web right now, is all these resources have been created by teachers for teachers. So it's not an expert created resource. So all these resources have been created by the teachers themselves. What the experts have done is they just provided them few ideas, few principles that they have to keep in mind while creating the resource. And ultimately, it is the ownership is on the participant themselves, and they have taken it up. The best ones have taken it up and moved it into a movement, like what you see in OER Commons. So this is about what I talk of the 3 different cases that you see in teacher professional development. So you have seen OER Commons, you have seen transition to online facilitation. Yeah, the website for transition to online facilitation is, one second, I'll just share the website with everyone. So it is npteltof.wordpress.com. Okay, so this is the website, and moving to the final aspect. So I haven't talked of learning analytics yet. I've talked of the way teacher professional development is changing. So now you see a lot of technologies being used in teaching and learning. So there are a lot of technologies, data that comes out of this. So for example, digital trace data. So let me just give you the table over here. Okay, 1 second. Just a minute. Yeah. So I'm going to share another tab where we look at all the data. So as more people move to online medium, technology provides the affordances of having what do you say, uh, different kinds of data coming into the picture. So simple examples are the digital trace data, or that you get from computers, smartphones, tablets, whatever technology device that we use. We can actually, so in a page like the transition to online facilitation, we can actually look at page views, downloads, videos watched. Maybe if it is a LMS, you can actually look at attempted questions. And all these logs are examples. So the examples are also provided. Another set of data are image data that comes with camera, video, smartphone camera. So a lot of images are being shared through WhatsApp groups, through Facebook. A lot of these data are used for teaching and learning. A latest trend in the developed countries is use of physiological data. So so you have these Myo wristbands or the other Google Fit, those kind of wearable devices, eye trackers. A phone has an accelerometer. So all your smartphones have accelerometers that you can use for collecting data. It gives both, so physiological means things like heart rate, skin's response, eye movement, brain activity, uh, gestures, emotions. A lot of these can be deciphered using this, all these kind of resources that we use. There could be stream data, for example. Stream data could be like frames that you take from the video. So you can record an entire teaching episode and then you can analyze it frame by frame, or select areas within the video and focus on that aspect of it. So all this comes part of stream data. Social data, of course, you have the social media platforms, emails, MOOCs, LMS discussion forums, etc. All these providing different kind of textual data, log data, etc. In terms of the community. And of course, the other text data like the context, content, sentiment, and everything can be used for utilizing the analytics that comes with each and every session. So for example, I can look at the WebEx chat response. I can look at, okay, how many people responded? Who are the active people? What are they responding for? Is it a response to my question, or is it queries related to where are the feedback form? When will I get the certificate? Those kind of queries. So these are the kind of things that you can get from these kind of data. And if you are a WebEx admin, you can see that a lot of people are getting connected and disconnected. So this engagement based on connections and disconnections can also be tracked from the same teaching source or the teacher professional development tool that we use for the program. So learning analytics have got a lot to give teacher professional development now. More importantly, what it helps in general is to make what do you say, to convert a teacher from just a information transmission agent to a more active person who utilizes the insights from the data. So how quickly you get the insights, the better you can implement in your teaching learning process, and then use that to correct your teaching learning strategy. So that is where we are seeing the idea of learning analytics going ahead. And a learning analytics is going to be an explicit part of teacher professional development in the idea of sense making, analyzing the evidence or evidence gathering. All these are broad themes where I see analytics informing teacher professional development and improving the teacher professional development, so that at the end learners benefit. Okay, so this is just one direction of learning analytics that we see, and this is being so this particular branch of learning analytics is now formally called teaching analytics. It will use it for management, use it for learning, and as well as the other self development of the teacher. So this is what I have for you in this talk on teacher professional development and learning analytics, and how it's going to get more prominent in the days to come. So I think I have come to formally to the end of my session. So I think now I'll open up the floor for Q&A, and yeah, any other clarifications that you have, we can clarify it at this point of time.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Program on learning analytics offering by your institution or any institution in India or abroad? It's a sub-discipline or a branch of study.
So learning analytics is an interdisciplinary format. So it's an interdisciplinary science. It has a significant amount of computer science. It has a significant amount of mathematics. It has a significant amount of educational or learning sciences involved. So what do you say? It is not a department per se. It could be, so for example, there is a learning analytics course specifically offered under NPTEL. It's called Introduction to Learning Analytics. There are also other courses in the educational technology. So educational technology department talks of learning analytics a lot. Other than that, so the other analytics called data analytics is more generic. So learning analytics is, how do I put it? It is a significant part of it has overlap with data analytics, but another significant aspect of it is rooted in learning sciences, so that they can make sense of what happens with the data. I mean, what does the data tell? So 25 students scoring 0 mark in a quiz question. What does it imply? I mean, this is the data that has been given by the learning management system or a Google form per se. So this data, what does it mean in terms of education? That sense has to be made by the teacher using their knowledge in learning sciences. So you can talk of this as an interdisciplinary science where you need multiple familiarity with multiple things to understand or make very corrective actions in your teaching learning process?
Sir,
start
I
this inter-team communication. Pardon me, sir. Can we start
Yeah.
with Slack inter-team communication?
Uh-huh.
Is it free? Can we start it in our university?
So see, Slack can be used in universities also. So there are a lot of universities across the world who are been using Slack for their regular classrooms. But please do understand that Slack is just one tool for communication. It is not. I mean, many have been using it for different kind of what do you say? Different kinds of applications, but it is best used as a communication or interaction tool and not as a full learning management system. Slack can be used inside the university. They have see again, Slack is not a I mean, when you look at the volume of or the number of university participants, including professors, uh, administrators, learners, etc., you may have to opt for a priced, it has a price, a planned price. You will have to monthly pay a certain amount. You will have to look at what plan best suits you and adopt a Slack plan for your university.
sir, there are some in the chat box.
Yeah. I'm just looking at those question. Is it under big data? So see, big data, yes, it is a part of big. So that's what educational learning analytics or teaching analytics is part of big data. But again, part of big data in the sense that you can get data from multiple sources. So that is the big data connection, and you will use the same type of tools that you use for big data analytics. But it's not just big data analytics. To make sense of what this data means, or what does, so this, let's say out of 10,000 learners who come to a university, approximately 75% of them are having access issues. They have repeated disconnections in a WebEx setting. So this is a data that you can get from a WebEx log. If you have purchased a WebEx license, this log you can get from WebEx. This data you can get from WebEx. Now, what does it imply? It has a managerial implication, right? Administration and management. So which means for that institution, there is a significant amount of people who are having data access issues. So what should be done in that case? Then in terms of teaching and learning, then the how this data insight helps the teachers is, rather than doing synchronous sessions, devote more time for asynchronous sessions. This could be one strategy that is adopted by teachers. Now, if you look at it, it is just not big data analytics, right? It is making sense of some data in a context and then using that sense to create an action. So this is what I talk of. Do not confuse with very large terms. It is, I mean, those large terms are required maybe for publicity or characterizing or labeling yourself under a group. But beyond that, it is just simple use of information to create actionable insights. That's what learning analytics is about. And teacher professional development, again, it is also an interdisciplinary field. It has some amount of management, some amount of psychology, some amount of learning, some amount of, yeah, whatever field you call it, computer, technology, everything is involved in this. So I would want, it was informative. Thank you. I would love to share the ideas of Slack and OER comments. Please feel free to share it with the others. Yeah, so Marinjo's, what I mentioned, so is it critical disclosure analysis or both? So traditionally, when you talk these research heavy terms, we put this under mixed methods in general. So you can use the data both for quantitative and qualitative analysis. So whatever you call disclosure analysis or discourse analysis, all these can be used in learning analytics. Learning analytics is a very umbrella term. It covers a lot of different fields. It covers both technology, education, it covers both technology, education, and management to a great aspect. And this is why we call it as an interdisciplinary field. Which LMS do you suggest? I don't suggest any LMS. I mean, it really depends on what your needs are. So it is just like that problem of, will you use the same hammer to strike a nail, or will you use the same hammer for putting in a safety pin, right? The context really matters. If you have, let's say, 300 learners in an organization, very active, maybe I will try recommending Moodle or Google Classroom. It really depends on what all things you want to bring in. If you want more flexibility, you want more freedom, then Moodle would be good from a technology standpoint, but you need a team to support the Moodle LMS. Google Classroom, it is in cloud, it is supported by Google, it is very fast. You can just plug in, you can add your, you just have to create a G Suite account, start the Google Classroom, add your learners into it. It is just, you can just start from there. The learning curve is very low. Assignments can be given. You can, again, but when you use a massive open online course, let's say you have 10,000 people coming in, then I will not suggest Google Classroom. Maybe we may have to look at MOOC platforms like edX, Swayam, Coursera. These might be, the platforms might be a much better solution for that. So in general, so it is like, so if you, which LMS do you suggest? It is like, whom do you think is the best actor, Mammootty or Mohanlal, right? It's exactly like that. I mean, for each person, each kind of role, both these actors are very versatile. They have played very different parts. The same goes for LMSs as well. Is any online training course going on for teachers at present, so that I can have great? I'm not really aware of any. There may be a lot of training courses going on. See, Swayam courses have started. There are a lot of courses under it. That also comes under online trainings. If you look at it, it is self-paced. You can look at, you can plan yourself and learn from it. Specific to technology, I will have to look at the training. You will have to look at each of these technology providers and see whether they are running programs. Digital divide is more among school teachers. What do you suggest to bridge the gap in terms of technological competence? I think it is a wrong term. From my own experience, the digital divide is much more higher in higher education. Particularly in case of Kerala, you have a lot of teachers who are much more competent in use of computers and a certain set of tools when compared to same college teachers who are in so a very minority of college teachers have competency to handle technology tools. I'm talking in general across the world. In higher education, the digital, even in developing countries or developed countries, the digital competence is far lesser among higher education teachers compared to school teachers, because school teachers, they have the attitude to put in the effort to learn a technology. Whereas when you go across higher education, you have people shutting themselves out to any technological advances. So that is something that I have seen across the place. Bridge the gap in terms of technological competence. But yeah, I agree to the point that there is a digital divide. I don't know. I don't have any definitive answers to bridge it. Rather than, I would look at it as an opportunity for teachers to learn from their students. So make students a greater part of this technology design. Technology design aspect of teaching learning. So for example, I've seen in Kerala, you have the school wiki, you have school IT coordinators. So most of these computer repairs, handling the softwares, etc., is better done by the school students than the teacher. And as a teacher, you just have to give the control to the student and identify what is ideal for that pedagogy. Okay, the pedagogy that you use in that particular session, it should have more learner autonomy. and you should encourage learners to participate more. Of course, you will still decide how the outcome is, but decide what these outcomes are and encourage learners or push learners into that direction. That is how you can temporarily, and it's, I don't know whether addressing or providing technical competence is the answer. The competence should be on three fronts: technology, pedagogy, and content. So it's not just about technology, it is also about the pedagogy that is ideal for that content, right? So you have to look at it as a whole holistic problem, not as a technology problem per se. Even with rudimentary technology, let's say as simple as PowerPoint, you can do wonders if you adopt the correct pedagogy. Okay, so we have seen cases where teachers are bringing in more and more variety with very rudimentary technology. So it's not just about technology competence, it is all about technology, pedagogy, and content competence among teachers. Slack is an Slack is an intercommunication channel. Is there any live program in Slack platform? See, Slack per se is more like WhatsApp plus plus. It can hold a lot of WhatsApp through channel mode, and it can avoid clutter through the use of threads. That is what Slack is. So live training, you will have to look at. So Slack conducts a lot of webinars, but it is not inside Slack. Okay, Slack webinars are just like Zoom meetings or WebEx presentations, but they talk of what all are the features in Slack. Which apps are relevant for teachers who are mostly beginners in educational technology? Again, see, these are more generic questions. Apps, I would say Google Suite. You should know the Google Suite, because then you can quickly bootstrap into online education. To know a full list of technology tools that you want to use in teaching learning, go to the IIT Bombay teaching learning site. For each aspect, they have given a list of tools that you can use. Yeah, so the ground reality, yes, I do understand, because my mother-in-law is a teacher. So I'm seeing what is happening during pandemic, and I'm seeing her day in and day out giving notes through WhatsApp and other aspects. So this is why I said it's not about technology competence. It is more about understanding. See, learning is a very human, at the end of the day, it has a lot of affective component involved in it. That is why I said it's not about technology competence alone. It is also about managing whom you want and developing a trust with your learner. That is very important. See, the moment you develop a trust, whatever is your other competences or flaws, that could be minimized a lot through a co-design process. So the entire teaching learning should be done by making the learner a very important stakeholder in the design also. That is what every research is saying. So how many of you be willing to do a class which is guided completely by learners? That is the kind of idea that we are moving into, because see, nowadays information is available to them through numerous channels, right? So it is about identifying what is the correct information and using it correctly. That is what the teacher's role is. So it's not technology competence, it is the facilitation competence that we are looking at in teachers these days. Okay, Tashi Chodan, how do you reach to those students who do not own smartphones or electronic gadgets for online learning? The same old, reaching out to students, it is also about what are the other sources. Do you know the community where these learners are from? Can you provide a resource, maybe a Xerox book, a book that has been completely Xeroxed, and provide them with that Xerox booklet, worksheets, etc.? Can this be provided to them? let's say if they have a TV, can you point them to specific channels to watch, specific programs to watch for learning each of these concepts? So it is also about not just about access. Access is a big issue, but as a teacher, you should identify the alternate mechanisms if technology is not solving your problem, right? So, synchronous technology in this case. So, here you have to move to asynchronous technology. Uh, so, if you look at the previous days, you had I remember of the story told by the creator of Moodle, Martin Dugimas. He was in Australia. His father was running a ranch, and he was studying in distance mode. And what happens was a plane used to come every month and drop a bag. This bag will have all the booklets, worksheets, etc. that Martin has to submit to the university, and at the end of the month the same plane will come and they can load it to the plane, and this will go back to the university. So there are a lot of ways in which you can tackle technology access issues, but again, the willpower, the kind of connect that you have, the kind of trust you have in the community. So it's not just a single teacher's problem, it is a community's problem that we have to really understand. Be it teacher professional development, be it learning, it's a community problem, and the community has to come forward to address it. So this is what I talk of sustainability in technology based learning. So we have to really move towards that particular direction when while we are designing our educational systems. Jinsu Varghese is asking, sir, I want to know whether Slack analytics useful to zoology professors. So Slack, it's not analytics. So analytics is useful, be it any department, and Slack also independently. So it really depends on what you are using Slack for. So Slack has a lot of affordances. Any technology for that matter has a lot of affordances. Affordances in the sense, so Slack, you can integrate Google Drive, you can integrate Google's spreadsheets, you can integrate polls or polls, you can integrate Zoom, you can integrate WebEx, everything can be integrated with Slack. So how you use this is ultimately depends on okay, how much you understand it and how much your learning design supports that particular integration. Okay, so looks like most of the questions in the chat I have answered. Any other open questions that are there?
Ismail sir, please
Okay.
start audio.
Yeah, so Tashi, I think it is too early to measure effectiveness at this point. At this point, what you have to look at is self-instructional material, give some additional materials that they can provide back to you in some way. Okay, so it could be feedback, it could be open responses, do some activity. That will be really good for you. That will be one good way for you to understand whether how many of your learners are engaged. At this point, do not focus on learning outcomes. A general message to all teachers who are attending this session is do not focus on syllabus completion at this point. What you have to focus on is that your learners do not forget how to learn. That I think is the crucial aspect at this point of time. Yeah. Yes, Ismail sir, you can take over. I think I've answered most of their queries. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
And treat our objects to specific time.
Yeah, Sajna ma'am, I think I am done. So if there are any,
I think there is some problem. Ismail sir, any problem? We can't hear you. We can't hear you. Ismail sir,
Yes,
we can't hear you. Jayashan sir almost completed his talk.
yeah,
I think-
now
Okay.
if there is no any question from the side of participants, we can move to vote of thanks.
yes, yes. Please go ahead. Please go ahead, sir.
Dr. Muhammad KV,
Yes, sir.
please proceed, sir.
Sure. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, sir. You are
Yes sir, yes sir.
Okay, before moving to vote of thanks, can I ask the participants, have you any questions? If you have any questions or want to say anything, this is time for you.
Sir,
The resource person
session was-
almost completed all the covered all the questions raised in the chat box. If you want to ask in as a voice, now this is the time for your queries and interaction. Please unmute your mic before asking. Okay. I think almost all doubts are cleared. Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Most respected chair of the session, Professor Jaya Jays, madam. Today's resource person, Dr. Jayakrishnan M. Members of organizing committee and my dear participants, a very good afternoon. This is time of express thanks to one and all. I feel so happy to share gratitude to all for the successful completion of today's session on teacher professional development and learning analytics in the third day of the webinar series. Thank you all for your active participation and kind support. At the outset, let me express our sincere thanks to our Honorable Vice Chancellor of Mahatma Gandhi University, Professor Sabu Thomas sir, for the real source of inspiration and support for all our academic endeavors. He is the real source of inspiration to organize this webinar. We had an eminent resource person today, Dr. Jayakrishnan M, Senior Scientist, NPTEL, IIT Madras. From his long years experience in the field of teaching and training in the professional development of teachers, he shared very valuable thoughts and information related to online courses and digital learning. We are really proud to have a resource person like you, sir, to handle the session. The comments and queries of the chat box of the participant, it is evidence that the sessions was very informative and useful to all. On the behalf of organizing committee of this webinar and School of Pedagogical Sciences, Mahatma Gandhi University, and my personal behalf, I express sincere thanks to Dr. Jayakrishnan sir. Thank you, sir. Then today's session chaired our beloved Dean of Education, Mahatma Gandhi University, Professor Jaya Jays. I express my gratitude to Madam Jaya Jays. Thank you, ma'am. I'm also very much thankful to Professor Minikuti, a professor and head of the Department of Sciences, for her leadership and continuous motivation and support throughout this program. Thank you, ma'am. Then let me take this voice to express my thanks to organizing team of this webinar, Professor Dr. TV Tulasidaran, convener of this webinar, Dr. Asha JV, Dr. Sajina Jalil, organizing secretary of this webinar, Dr. Ismail Tamarisheri and Dr. Sibuji Nito, coordinators of this webinar, for their coordination, organizing leadership, and all the support throughout this program. Moreover, I would like to thank the participants of the webinar. You all make this session fruitful and great success. We, the organizing committee, expressing all appreciation for your keen interest and active participation throughout this program. On the behalf of School of Pedagogical Sciences and Organizing Committee, we are expressing our heartfelt gratitude to one and all participants gathered here. Once again, I express my thanks to all for making this webinar is a great success. Thank you once again. Thank you all.
Jayashree sir, thank you very much. Thank you.
Hello, Jayashree sir. Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Are you remembering me? We had it together once, Farooq Training College.
Yes, yes. I remember you,
program.
sir. Yes, yes. I remember
Okay.
you, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Sure, sure. My pleasure, sir.
Hello.